Hello everyone, sorry for not filming since long, but welcome to the IGCSE Passion. For the day, as I promised earlier, I'll be explaining chapter 14 from the IGCSE Biology syllabus. And for the day, we'll be explaining the nervous system, coordination, and response in all living organisms. Here are the points that we will be covering for the day. You can find them in the official syllabus that is provided by Cambridge. If you can't find it, you can go to the link that I've linked earlier in one of my videos for biology. Okay, so let's start with our lesson. Coordination in animals and humans. So the nervous system is the way of coordinating in animals and humans. But the nervous system is broken into two parts. Let me just bring my pen. We have the nervous system broken into central and peripheral nervous system. So the central contains the brain and the spinal cord, while the peripheral contains the rest of the body. So this includes the nerves that you can find in your feet, hands, but the central only contains the brain, here you see it there, and the spinal cord here at the back, the one that looks like stem. And another thing is that the nervous system is there to coordinate and regulate functions of the body. Now, this is a very important part. Um, they can ask a lot of questions on that, and it can contain like 1 to 2 marks as a max. Next, impulses. Now, you will see a lot of slides like that. The ones that look like this will be a definition. So you need to memorize it as it is. I've got it from the syllabus itself. So this is exactly the meaning that you want to memorize. So this one may contain some keywords that you should include in your answer so you can take the full marks that it contains. So impulses are electric messages or signals that travel through neurons. This is another word that you will hear a lot in this lesson, neurons. Type of neurons. We have three types of neurons that impulses travel through. Um, we have firstly the motor, secondly the sensory, and lastly the relay. So sensory is the one that are the closest to the skin. So they're the one that receive the impulses that are coming from things that are called receptors on the skin that can detect any change around it and would send the impulse. And from the receptor, it will travel through the sensory. So the sensory is the one that you can find throughout your body to send the messages to your brain or your spinal cord. While the relay is found in the central nervous system, where the brain and the spinal cord are found in. And lastly, we have the motors. The motors are connected to glands and muscles. Now we will talk about the peripheral and the central nervous system and how they are connected together and what do they contain. So the peripheral nervous system would send impulses to the central nervous system. This is how the thing works. So peripheral would detect the change around you that you should make a response for. So the peripheral would send an impulse through the sensory neurons and then it will travel to the central nervous system. And the central nervous system will stimulate another impulse, an electric impulse, a message that will travel through the motor to a gland or a muscle to make a response for that change. Here I'm going to just highlight the keywords right here so you can know that. And this one is an abbreviation for each, so I won't write a lot and make it simple for you. You can use this way as it will help you with memorization. I feel that it is the simplest way during your examination. So if you're having a quiz, you can just write this thing at the corner of your page so that you can explain it even more through your answer so you won't forget any point while answering. Now we will talk about the simple reflex. Now it is just the same idea as the one in the previous slide, but this one contains more details, so you need to know these ones if you're not feeling like this one is helping you. So the simple reflex, it would stimulate stimulus detected by a receptor. So stimulus is the change in the environment. That what do we mean by stimulus? Whenever you see this word, remember that it means a change in the environment. It's detected by what? It is detected by receptor. So they look like roots, but they are found at, let's say, your skin, your feet, the edges of your skin. I'm gonna just mark it at the picture beside us here. So they're found right here. Here is where the receptors are found. They're found with all your body parts. And then impulse passes along sensory neurons. So, as we said, it would travel from the receptor to the sensory. Then what will happen? It passes to the relay neurons. Now, this one I didn't mention it in the earlier slide, as relay are found in the central nervous system, which contains the brain and the spinal cord. Now, these two parts contains the relay. Now, the relay is there to carry the impulse that was carried by the sensory to it, so that it can make another impulse from the brain to send it to the other part that will make a response. Okay. So here is where you will find the relay neuron. Now the last part of the simple reflex is that impulse passes along motor neuron. Motor neurons are these ones. I'm gonna just mark it on the picture so you can imagine it. It's not that clear, but the blue thing is a motor neuron. No, it's not literally like that, of course, but this is the idea. It will travel from the relay, then it will travel through the motor so it can reach the muscle. Here is the muscle, sorry for the bad handwriting, but that's how it's carried out. Um, Here are the thing that will make a response. So this muscle would cause the feet to move. So here is a stimulus. This tool would make a stimulus, and an impulse would travel through the receptors that are found in this area, and it will be carried through the sensory neuron. Here we go into the relay. Here's the relay, and the relay will cause the brain to stimulate another impulse that will be carried through the motor. Here's the motor, and then it will reach the muscle. Now the muscle will cause the foot or the foot to move in a certain way to get away from the stimulus. And this the muscle is known as an effector. So I'm gonna write it with a highlighter, an effector. Okay. So reflex action. The definition of a reflex action is an automatically rapid, integrated, and coordinating stimuli with response effector. This one contains a lot of keywords, so you need to memorize it fully. Oh, an effector. As I said earlier, an effector is a muscle or a gland. So let's dive even deeper. Now, looking at the neurons but with a deeper look, we have something known as a synapse. Now, the synapse is the gap between two neurons. As you can see, this one is a neuron, this one is another neuron, and this area is known as the synapse. Now, what is the role of the synapse right here? It ensures that the impulse travel in one direction, so it won't travel backwards, and the impulse will be traveling in the right way, and there won't be any delay in the response. So let's look at the part of the synapse and the neurons, as this one will contain a lot of questions as you go through your past papers. Wait, sorry. As we said, this gap is known as the synaptic gap or the junction. Then we have the vesicles. Now, these ones, the green circles in the neuron is known as vesicles. Sorry. Then we have those tiny particles, the small green circles. Now, the large ones are vesicles, but the small ones are what? They are neurotransmitters. So, what can we conclude? That the vesicles would make the neurotransmitters. And then we have the black, let's say, parts on the next neuron. It is known as receptors. These are the ones that receive the neurotransmitters, and that's all. So, going to the transmission of impulses, a closer look. So, what happens? How does that happen? How does the impulse travel from one neuron to the next? I wrote it as steps. I guess this one is also in the syllabus, like I got it as it is. I can't recall, but I guess that is how I got it. So, an impulse stimulates the release of neurotransmitter neurotransmitter molecules from vesicles into synaptic gap. So here are the vesicles. It would release um, neurotransmitters into the synaptic junction. The neurotransmitters molecule diffuse across the gap. Diffuse. Now this is very, very important. You need to know that it diffuses. So it goes from high concentration to low concentration. Here we have a lot of neurotransmitters. Here we have less. So how will it diffuse? It will move from high concentration to low concentration. If you can't recall what is diffusion, then you should revise, I guess, chapter 3. I'm not really sure, but I guess it's chapter 3. Neurotransmitters, neurotransmitter molecules bind with a receptor protein on the next neuron. Now, these are the uses of proteins, I guess. You can also find it in chapter 4 in the syllabus. So, neurotransmitters that we talked about earlier, those green dots, they are diffusing from high concentration to low concentration from the vesicles to the other neuron. And then the other neuron welcomes it in what way? It will welcome it by binding it with a receptor in the next neuron. An impulse is then stimulated to the next neuron. I think a lot of people would assume that the last point is not that important. Everyone knows that a new impulse will be stimulated to the next neuron, and that is basic knowledge. But this one contains a mark. Like if you checked mark scheme, you'll find that this one contains a mark. So you should write that. Now, talking about 14.2 on the syllabus order, it is talking about sense organs. So, what is a sense organ? A sense organ is a group of receptor cells responding to a specific stimuli, whether it was light, sound, touch, temperature, and chemicals. Now we will talk about one of the most important parts that you have in your body, your eyes. Now the eyes, you need to know the parts of the eye, starting from the very, very first part where it's like where does the light enters the eye. So we have the first part, which is the cornea. I guess we start from here. The cornea, then we have the pupil, then we have the iris, and then we have the lens right here. The lens and how is it there, like how is it in place. We have the sponsor ligament and ciliary muscle. Now this one have a very special part in the syllabus. We will be talking about the sponsor ligament and the ciliary muscle, how they're working together, and how the lens is helping you to view the things around you. Then we have this part, this layer right here. It is the outermost layer in the eye, like from inside. It is the retina containing receptors. Then we have the fovea right here. It is on the retina. The fovea is an area in the retina. And then here we have the blind spots. Let me just mark it out as There is nothing that is telling you that it is a blind spot. Now, this one right here, I'm putting a circle around it. Now, this area, like you will find if you saw like a real life photo, you will see that there is a bend right in the spot that I placed the circle around it. Now, this one is known as the blind spot. You can't see through it. There's no receptors that allows you to see anything through it. Why is that? Because exactly behind it we have the optic nerve. It is the nerve that carries impulses from the eyes to the brain directly to tell you what to do. Like we said, that there are receptors that can detect the light and then it will send an impulse through the nerve, optic nerve, and it will send it to the brain to stimulate a certain response. Here, you will need to know like what is the job exactly for each part that we talked about before that. We have the cornea, which is the outermost layer, which is there to refract light. Refract, not reflect, okay, guys? We're not physics. Wait, let me just remove that. Iris is there to control how much light enters the pupil. So let me just go back to the past slide. There, as you can see, here is the iris. Now the iris is the black. Like it depends on like your eye color, which can be green, blue, black, brown. Now these circles, or whatever you want to call it, is the iris. Now this one would expand or become smaller depending on how bright is the light that you are viewing. So depending on that, you will see the light. Now, as we said, the iris control how much light enters into the pupil. Now, talking about the lens. Now, the lens that is like it looks like the lens that you would use in your glasses. They focus light into the retina. Okay. Retina. So the retina, as we said, is the outermost layer out there in the eye that contains receptors. So it contains light receptors. Some are sensitive to different light colors. Optic nerve is there to carry impulses to the brain. Okay. So here is how the eye responds to different light intensities. Now we will start with the bright light and how does your eye respond to that. Now the bright light causes the circular muscle and the radial muscle. Now the circular muscle and the radial muscle, let me check if there's a photo of that. No, I don't have a photo of that, but you can check that through the internet. Now, the circular muscle and the radial muscle are found in your iris. Now, the iris is made up of two muscles, circular and radial. Now, they both work in different ways. So, if one is relaxing, the other is working, and vice versa. So, in the bright light, what will happen? Uh, the circular muscle will contract while the radial muscle would relax. And then we have the size of the pupil itself. What will happen? The size of the pupil would constrict, so it will become smaller. So if you place like a flashlight into your eye, you can see that your pupil became small. Why is that? Because it is protecting your retina from damage. As bright light is too much for your retina to control, as there are a lot of sensitive receptors in there. So bright light is not good. So what do we do? The circular muscle will constrict, causing the iris to become smaller. The radial muscle would contract to help that as well. The size of the pupil will become smaller, and what will happen to the light intensity? Eventually, it will become less. Now, talking about the dim light would cause the circular muscle to relax, the opposite of the bright light. It would relax, and the radial muscle eventually will contract, and the size of the pupil will dilate, it will become bigger. So when you are in a dark room and you look through your mirror, for instance, you will see that your pupil is so large compared to your eye when you are in a bright room. And that is because you want more light to enter into your retina so you can see what is happening around you. And so eventually the light intensity will become more. Now, accommodation of the eye. Now, when you look at objects from different distances, your eye needs to accommodate so you can see it clearly. So, um, if you're looking at a far object, what will happen? The ciliary muscle that I talked about earlier would relax, while the sponsory ligament that is there, like the red thing right here, as you can see, I'm highlighting down the pictures that you can find at the base of the slide here. The red part is known as the sponsory ligament. It would pull the lens, as you know, it would pull it so that it would change the size of the lens, and the ciliary muscle would keep it in place. So the ciliary muscle would relax, but the sponsory ligament would tighten. So when it tightens, the lens will become very thin. That is because we want less refraction for the light so it can enter into the eye easily, and that you can see it much more clearly. While the near objects would cause the ciliary muscle to contract and the sponsory ligament to loosen. So they're just like the radial and the circular muscle. They are acting in a way that one is working, one is relaxing, and the opposite. And in the case of a near object, the lens would become thicker. So an example for each of our objects, let's say you are on a mountain, you're looking at, let's say, your house from the mountain, you need to look at the thing that is very far, which is your house. So the ciliary muscle would relax, the sponsory ligament will tighten. Why? So the lens will become thinner. While if you're looking, let's say, at a book, you're reading, and the words are very small, you will get the book near your eyes, so the ciliary muscle will contract, sponsory ligament will loosen, and what will happen to the lens? It will become fatter or thicker. So a far object, we need less light to be refracted, but a near object, we need it to be more. We need more refracted light. These are very important points to include in your answer. So let's imagine that you're answering an exam. How will the marks be distributed on your answer? Let's say they told you that John is looking at his house from a mountain. What are the accommodation of his eyes while he's looking at the house? Starting with the ciliary muscle, you should include that it would relax. Here's a mark. Posterior ligament tighten. Here's your second mark. And you should include what will happen to the lens. This is your third mark. And lastly, the last mark for your answer is that he needs less light to be refracted so he can see clearly. Here are 4 marks that should be included in your answer to have the full mark. Now talking about the retina. As we said, there are receptors in your retina. We have rods and cones. Now they're all found in the retina. Rods are more than the cones. Now there is no assumptions about that. There are more rods than the cones, but there is the fovea. The fovea is the area that we talked about earlier in one of the slides. I guess it's there. Sorry, here. Here is it. So here is the fovea. The fovea is this area. It contains more cones than rods, but the rest of the retina have more cones than rods in the fovea, but the opposite is going on with the rest of your retina. So what is the job of rods and cones, or the receptors in your eyes? Now the rods are there for gray shades. You use it for night vision. All retina contains rods, but it does not, you cannot find it in fovea nor the blind spot. Now, the blind spot, as we said earlier, is in front of the optic nerve. While cones, we have three types of cones. We have the green, the blue, and the red shade cones. So they allow you to see these three colors, where like you can see other colors because they would, if you mix, let's say, uh, red and blue, you will see purple, and if you mix green and red, you will see another color, and so on. So that's why we only have three colors of cones, while the pods is therefore gray shades. Now the cones allows you to see during the day, and they are mostly found in your fovea, but they're not found in the in the blind spot. So the blind spot do not contain any receptor. Here is a graph that they've included once in one of the past papers, where they gave you a graph and you need to explain it, I guess. There were several questions on it. So, as you can see, there are a few cones right here, a lot of roads right there. Why is that? Because this is an area other than the fovea, other than um, what also other than the blind spot. Here is where the fovea is found. Here we have the cones where they had their highest points in your retina, and you have no rods at all. But then the rods would increase again while the cones would reduce again, and boom, here we have nothing. The area contained no receptors at all, but again, we go back to our norm, which is more rods, less cones. Going to chapter 14.3, hormones. Now, hormones are only found in animals and humans. You cannot find it in plants. They have another way of answering, but they are still living organisms. So hormones are what? Hormones are chemical substances produced by a gland and carried by what? By the blood. It's not like impulses that travels through neurons. It is carried by the blood, which alters the activity or change a certain activity of one or more specific target organ. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, you can see the words, I guess. So the endocrine system. I covered, like here's the structure that you need to know how to label, but I covered certain labels right here because it's not my picture. I got it from the internet, as I didn't find one that is serving my need. So I covered the ones that you don't need to know, and I kept the ones that you need to know. So we have the adrenal gland. You need to label it. It is above the kidneys, pancreas, right here. It looks just like an almond. Like if there is a stomach right here, you can see it, but they're not including that. But it is below the stomach, I guess. And then we have ovaries for females only, and testes for male only. Now you need to know the gland and what hormone does it release. The adrenal gland, obviously adrenaline, which cause a fight or flight mode to be turned on in your body, and certain consequences will happen due to this hormone. We have the pancreas. The pancreas is responsible for releasing two hormones, insulin and glucagon. Now glucagon is only for extended students. If you're not extended, then you don't need to know that. Ovaries, estrogen, testes, testosterone. Fight or flight mode. The adrenal consequences, as I said earlier. What can an adrenaline do? So when you find, let's say you were walking in the forest, you found a bear. What will happen? You got frightened. So when you get frightened, you will run. So increasing your breathing rate. This is a point. God, I'm struggling. I won't fight. I will just point it with the laser pointer. So breathing rate will increase and the heart rate will increase. This is not like the ones that are shaded with blue or written with the blue color is having some association with extended students. But if you're not, you still need to know these points, but you will not know deeper details about it. But I'll talk about the details later through the video. So you need to know that fight or flight mode would cause an increase in the breathing rate, increase in the heart rate, your pupil would diameter would increase, and your blood glucose concentration will increase as well. Now, here are the points for the extended students. If you're not an extended, then you can skip to the next slide when I'm explaining. Now, control of metabolic activities of adrenaline. The term metabolism, I'm going to point up this one, I guess I'm going to highlight it even as it's important. The term metabolism describes all chemical changes that take place in the body. So, any chemical change is associated with metabolism. Adrenaline causes the heart rate to increase. So the muscles, what will happen to them? They're supplied with blood containing glucose and oxygen more quickly. So your heart is pumping much more faster. So the blood will reach the lungs much more faster. More oxygen will be received by the red blood cells. More CO2 is getting rid of in a faster rate or pace, and this prepares them for action. So the muscles will have more oxygen so they can act even much more faster. It also stimulates what the liver to convert glycogen to glucose, increasing the blood glucose concentration. We will be talking about glucose concentration literally after this slide, so I'll be telling you more details, but generally the liver is there for what? It is there to convert glucose and glycogen. Glycogen is insoluble type of polysaccharide. Glucose is simple uh, it is simple carbohydrate that is soluble, that can be transported and be used throughout your body, but glycogen cannot be used and it is there just for storage. It increases the blood glucose concentration when it is converted into a soluble state. Adrenaline also reduces the blood supply to the skin and digestive organs. So blood is diverted to vital organs, like the organs that you need to use. So adrenaline reduces the blood supply for your skin. That's why you would look so pale when you are scared. You would become yellow. Okay, so you need to know the difference between nervous system and the endocrine system. Uh, I guess you can use this method through your exam if we ask a question like that. You can make like not a literal table, but you should have like labels around there so they can know what you're writing about. You need to show that you are obviously like you have full understanding of what you're talking about, not that you memorize the shape and you're just including information. So, form of transmission for nervous system is through impulse, while endocrine system is through hormones. The pathway of each. So, as we said earlier, the pathway for nervous system is through the nerves, while the endocrine system is through the blood. The speed in the nervous system is much more faster than the endocrine system. So the endocrine system may require time as the blood won't be that fast as the neuron to reach the heart and then increase the oxygen rate that easily, just like the nervous system and the impulses. The duration for the nervous system is for a short term response, like it won't be for a long time. So you just, let's say you stopped over a nail, you would just have a very fast response. You just remove your feet, and that's all. While the endocrine system may require a long time so that your heart rate would go back to normal. Lastly, the response. The nervous system is localized, so it is for a certain point, while the endocrine system is widespread. It would be for certain target organs, let's say the heart, the eye, the feet, let's say. But the nervous system is for a certain part. It is localized. Moving on. Wait. Oh, my device got stuck. Okay. So, 14.4, we're moving so fast, we're left with one more sub chapter and we'll be done. So, homeostasis. Oh god, okay, my device got stuck. Homeostasis, what does it mean? I'm gonna highlight the keywords again. It is the maintenance of a constant internal environment despite the external environment, controlled by the negative feedback with reference to a set point. So it maintains the internal body, internal conditions despite what's going on around you. So let's say the environment outside is very cold, your internal body won't get cold as there will be a maintenance that is made by the homeostasis. Insulin is there to decrease blood glucose concentration. What does it do? It reduces the glucose concentration in your blood. Decrease. God, okay. I guess my device is going through some problems. I'll be fixing it in uh, before my upcoming video. The liver is homeostatic organ. It controls the level of a number of material in the blood, including your glucose. So the liver is there. It controls the state of the protein in your body and what will happen to it. I guess we talked about it in a chapter of excretion. I guess it was chapter 13, and it also controls your glucose, surprisingly. Now, the blood glucose level are controlled by a negative feedback mechanism involving the production of two hormones, as we said earlier, that is released by the pancreas, which is insulin and glucagon. Let's dive even deeper in this point. So, glucose concentration and blood. So when there's very high glucose concentration in your blood, let's say you had the fight or flight mode, your adrenaline increased, and so your glucose concentration in your blood also increased, what will happen? Insulin will be stimulated by your pancreas, which will cause the liver and muscle cells to convert excess glucose into glycogen. It will become insoluble to be stored. So there will be less glucose in your blood and you'll go back to normal state. So let's repeat. Insulin is there that it will be released by your pancreas, causing or stimulating your liver and muscle cells to convert glucose soluble into glycogen, which is insoluble. You should know that there is a difference between glucagon and glycogen. Glycogen is a polysaccharide, glucagon is a hormone that is released by your pancreas. A lot of students make mistake in this one. Now let's go to when you have low glucose concentration. Let's say there's a person with I don't know, I don't have examples, but let's say your body have low glucose, what will happen? Glucagon, which is the hormone, will stimulate the liver and the muscle cells to convert stored glycogen, which is insoluble, into soluble state, which is glucose, to be released in your blood to get back your glucose level to normal. Now you need to know about type 1 diabetes only, you don't need to know about type 2 or anything else. You need to know also the treatment of type 1. So how do we treat type 1 diabetes? Now type 1 diabetes in general means that a person cannot control the glucose concentration in their body. Like it can increase very highly and they cannot control it with insulin. Like they do not have insulin that is released constantly when there is high concentration of glucose in their blood. So how do they fix that? there is insulin injection into their body that are used as a treatment as their glucose concentration in their blood is out of control. Now, the symptoms of type 1 diabetes. Now, I found these points in one of the revision guides that is going back to the syllabus of 2022 and 21. As I guess it changed a lot back then, well, from back then, but I guess like it is better to know them rather than not knowing them. So the symptoms of type 1 diabetes is extreme thirst, weakness and tiredness, fatigue, blurred vision, weight loss, and loss of consciousness in extreme cases. Now, talking about the skin, here I did the exact same movement. I covered the ones that you don't need to know. I forgot to do that with the eye picture as I didn't have a lot of time for that. But here are the parts that you need to know about the skin that are associated with our lesson. We need to know the nerve ending, which are the receptors. Here they are, the yellow ones at the tip of your skin, at the top of your skin. Here we have the sweat gland, the blue thing that looks like a knot. Here we have the sensory neuron that is connected with the receptors that are at the top of your skin. Here we have the adipose tissue. Now the adipose tissue have been mentioned in chapter 4. It is there for heat insulation to keep your body warm during winter. It is a fatty layer in your skin. Like you can, like if there was labeling, you can call it adipose tissue or fatty tissue. It is the same thing. Now here we have the blood vessels, the red and the blue ones that you can find right here. This one is also, let me just point it out. This one is also a blood vessel. You need to know also the artery and the vein. It won't be that clear in your exam, like this picture, as it won't be colored. But I guess they won't ask about which one is a vein and which one is an artery, so don't take that too seriously. And lastly, now this one that looks like several strands that are connected together is known as an erector muscle. It controls the positioning of the hair. You need to know that the black ones are hair. Okay, moving on. The maintenance of internal temperature. You need to know how your body is maintaining the internal temperature. I've got this picture from Save My Exam. It's a very good source for IGCSE students. It contains a lot of vision guides that you can access, but they require money. As I'll be offering free notes, I guess, during the upcoming weeks, if I was able to do so, so I can help you all. As the purpose of this channel is to help other IGCSE students to access IGCSE content, especially that not all parents can offer their students a lot of money for their education. Going back to our lesson, maintain internal temperature. When you are hot, like it's a very hot temperature like now, sweat is secreted by sweat gland, and so you will find that there's sweat going at the top of your skin, so it will stimulate uh, some sweat, and you'll find the sweat on the top of your skin. This will cool your skin by evaporation. Evaporation is in physics syllabus. I guess I'll be explaining physics in my upcoming videos, but remind me for that so I won't forget it. Heat energy from the body is lost as liquid water and sweat become vapor. So that's why you feel cool because the water or the sweat that is not having a lot of kinetic energy will stay at your skin, and these ones are the cool ones, not the hot ones. The hot ones will evaporate. Hair lie flat, so the hair you will find it as fast as possible against the skin, allowing air to freely circulate. This increases heat transfer to environment by radiation. Also, radiation is in physics. I guess I'll be explaining it for sure. When we are cold, skeletal muscle contract rapidly and we shiver like you will be shaking in your place. This this is an involuntary action by your muscles Contraction need energy for respiration, and some of this is released as heat. That's why you get warm when you shiver. Erector muscle will contract, causing your body hair to stand. So that's why when you are shivering, you will find your body hair standing in place, and which act as an insulator, okay, preventing heat loss by radiation. Okay, moving on. I guess this is the last part. Let me make sure. Yes, it is the last part about animals and humans. So, vasoconstriction and vasodilation. So, we will be explaining each separately. Now, this one I didn't find any picture to illustrate that, but you just need to memorize it as a definition. I guess it will be easier for you. So, vasoconstriction, so what happens? Vasoconstriction is related when you're cold, okay? And vasodilation, like it sounds more like, dilate, relaxing. And vasoconstriction is just shivering and being in place. So vasoconstriction is when you're cold, vasodilation is when you're hot. So vasoconstriction is muscle in arteriole walls contract, making the lumen small. So your arteriole or arteries that I showed you in the picture earlier will become very thin, like less blood will go through, uh, like reaching the skin, reducing the heat loss per unit time. As we said earlier in the past slide, that you need less blood to travel into your skin so that you can get warm in this cold weather. So less blood travel through the skin, reducing the heat loss per unit time, reducing sweat so less sweat evaporates, making the body cools down less. Now talking about vasodilation, you're hot like this weather, you're very hot, you need something to cool you down. The muscles in the wall of the arteriole supplying the skin capillaries relax, so the lumen will become larger and more blood will enter your skin. That's why you become red. Like you can find people while running and sweating that their skin would look red. That is because more blood is supplied through their arterioles. More blood flows, so more heat can be lost to the environment from the blood at a time. And that is associated with shunt vessel. You should include that in your answers when you're talking about vasoconstriction and vasodilation. You should talk about shunt vessels. It is the one that is controlling the whole process. Like it's controlling your arterioles constrict and dilate. So you need to so that the lumen can increase and decrease in size. You need to include that in your answer. Yay! Now we're talking about plants, the tropic response. It is the last part of our syllabus, so it is like the easiest part. It's a piece of cake. We'll be moving over it as fast as possible. It's just memorization, like fast memorization. You don't need to understand anything. There won't be a lot of explanation. Everything is simple. Now let's start with our first definition. Gravitropism or geotropism. They're the same, they're just two different words but the same definition. But I guess like with the change of the syllabus they prefer calling it gravitropism rather than geotropism. It is a response in which parts of the plant grow towards or away from gravity. Here's our most important word in gravity. Like you can conclude that from the word itself, gravity. Now looking at the next definition, phototropism. Now what can you conclude from photo? Photo, plants, photosynthesis, exactly. Now let's just circle the keywords. It is a response in which parts of a plant grow towards or away from the direction of light source. Now, what is the association between light and photosynthesis? It is obvious. Light can cause photosynthesis. No light, no photosynthesis. That is why we call it phototropism. Now, you need to know the parts of the plant and their relationship with phototropism, geotropism, and phototropism. So I'll be blocking them out. Now I labeled the photo as you can see. Now the roots and the shoots. Now this one is the shoot. The one that you can see is the shoot. The one under the soil is the roots. That is how they label it in IGCSE. So the shoots are showing you that they are positive phototropism. They're moving towards the light. As you can see, they would sacrifice themselves just to point towards the light to bring photosynthesis to life. While it is negative gravitoprism because it's growing against gravity, it's going upward, not downward towards the gravity. While for the roots are showing positive gravitropism. It's going towards the gravity. It's going downward to the base of the earth. But it is not going towards the sunlight. It does not need sunlight. There is no chloroplast in there. So that's why it is negative phototropism. It's not going towards the light. It's going against it. Now let's complete oxen wall implant. I guess this is the last slide. Hopefully, I got tired. Okay, so oxen. What is oxen? This is a photo that is illustrating everything. The pink dots are known as oxen. It is just like the hormones in your body. It is stimulating your body, or sorry, the plant to make a response for certain stimuli around it. So it is found in it is made in the shoot of the shoot tips. So here's the tip of the shoot, as you can see. It grows in a certain way according to a certain stimuli. Oxygen diffuses through the plant from the shoot tip. So it would diffuse downward, as you can see here. Here we have some small dots down there, but here it's different depending on different stimuli. Oxygen is unequally distributed. I guess I found that in one of paper two. They've asked about this one, whether it is equally or it is unequally distributed in response to light or gravity. It is unequally, not equally, put that in mind. And last point is that oxygen stimulates cell elongation. So the plant cannot make a response like you by walking away, let's say, or stepping away, or let's say producing sweat. The plants do not sweat. So does it do? It cannot do anything like if an animal approaches to eat it. It won't make a response sadly, but it can make a response, let's say, for light so that it can photosynthesize. It would grow in a different way just so that it would respond for light positioning. So here I'm gonna explain it on the photo as I didn't write it, I guess. So if the light is distributed in a perfect way, you'll find that the oxygen is distributed in a way that is found at all points of the plant. At the tip, at the sides, everything is going fine. It's going, like if it's growing, it will grow upwards. It won't go to any side. It will grow at the right angle. But if the light was on a certain side, you will see as it's right here. Now, put in mind that's a very important part. I forgot to write it. So the oxygen is some phobic, let's say. It is phobic to light. It is scared from light. It would run away from light. So you will find it at the area where shade is found. You will not find it at the area where the sun is found. Put that in mind. That is very important. So it will like be made at the side where there is no sunlight. So it will elongate. It won't elongate at the area where there is no oxygen. It will only elongate at the area where oxygen is found only. So that's why here at step 2 and 3 in the photo, it starts to bend towards the side that only contains. It would elongate only when on the side that contains oxygen. Here, and as you can see, it elongated towards the sun, and that's why it's growing as it is photosynthesizing. And that is all for the day. That is one of the longest lessons that are found in the syllabus, and we're done with it fully. Congratulations, you all. Keep it up, keep the work that you're doing, and good luck with your examinations and your studies.